He's on, but the signal.
I'm here, but I can't hear it that well.
Patrick,
Did you plug in this microphone?
It's not the microphone, it's the internet signal is so bad. He's getting like matrix effects sometimes. It's intermittent, it's dropping in and out.
Okay. So brief history, like way back in the days of FileMaker, the way you would connect to FileMaker from the internet was CDML, which is, I don't even remember what it stands for, but it's
Claris Dynamic Markup Language?
Something like that. So it was basically a very basic way to pull some data in and out. It was functionally limited, and it was almost impossible to learn and understand, so much that there are books written about it. But if you ever run across a system like nowadays that's still in CDML, it's time to upgrade them because they're probably still using FileMaker pre-5 at that point in time. CDML was then replaced in FileMaker 7, Server 7 Advanced, with Xslt Web Publishing, which was, like CDML, was overly complicated, difficult to learn, so nobody really used it. It's hard to learn, it's complex, it's not really intuitive, and it's basically you're transforming. We had an Xslt meeting for FileMaker's import for Xslt that Patrick did a couple months ago.
XML.
Well, yeah, Xslt transforms XML from one format into another. So Xslt was 2004. So in 2004, like, again, it's 12 years out of date. The web has drastically changed between now and then. So it's time to move on. So I believe it was, so FileMaker had actually taken notice that nobody was actually really using Xslt, so they silently dropped it and replaced it with the FileMaker API for PHP, or the PHP API as we refer to it today. And since then, they've updated it every now and then to fix functions that stop working because newer versions of PHP came out, or to support. Yes, more tea. I'm good with beer. So they replaced it, and they keep it up to date, updating it with small tweaks and changes with each version of FileMaker that's rolled out. As of FileMaker Server 15, it's still the preferred method of connecting FileMaker to the web, although in subsequent versions we could be seeing additional changes or improvements that could even replace this with more actively connecting API functionalities.
$10 connection. $10 per API call.
Yeah. There's also, so if you want to install it, so one of the more modern API languages, so to speak, that the rest of the web uses but FileMaker doesn't, is REST. And I suck at acronyms. I don't remember what it stands for. Relay, Entry, Standard, Transmission, or something like that. But anyways, there is a free product out there that you can get and install on your server called REST-FM. It's from Goya, and it basically turns your FileMaker server into a REST API server, so you can do things that way. But the PHP API has actually a counterpart called the in-custom web publishing, which is the XML API. We're not going to cover the XML API because mostly everybody I've talked to has said it's pretty much on its way out, even though that it's still very useful. Like things like mirror sync, use it to sync records back and forth between FileMaker databases just because it's faster than other methods. And it also works better with things like Java, which is why they use it. So if you're new to PHP before, and you've never written a line of PHP, I'm going to show you how easy it is. So when you're I've got an index file here, and you'll note that I'm loading this index page here in the background. But it's saying something's wrong because this is an empty page and it doesn't have anything in it. So I'm going to type, open my PHP, and I'm going to type echo hello world, and then close that up. And I'm going to save this. And this is actually a legitimate, fully qualified PHP page. I could actually just write hello world in this page as well, and it would work because the FileMaker would parse the PHP file and send the plain text to the browser because it's not within this PHP bracket, but everything within this PHP bracket is dynamic. So sometimes you'll see pages that are mixed HTML and they have one small little condensed tag like this right in the middle of it, and that just means they only want to use PHP to stick something in that little part of the page. So now if I was to refresh this page, there's my hello world right there.
So I guess I understand this part. Say you just installed FileMaker Server, what's the next step to use custom web publishing?
Right. I'm getting there.
You're jumping ahead.
This looks like you're already done. You're already running it.
Yep, it's done. That's it. Go home. Right. So to actually install and start using custom web publishing to connect to your FileMaker server, the first step to doing that is actually installing FileMaker server. When you install FileMaker server, it gives you the option to install the web publishing engine, which gives you access to the PHP API, the XML API, and WebDirect. So when you install that, it configures and it installs its own Apache rules and everything for you so that your server can respond to any of those web requests.
Sometimes it'll ask if you want to install FileMaker's version of PHP or use one, which would you use?
I always use FileMaker's version of PHP because it's the most compatible with other things. So the thing about custom web publishing is that your code, like this code, this index.php page, can be hosted anywhere. Like if I've got a GoDaddy hosting account, or if I've got an Amazon web server that I specifically set up to host my website, that will host my PHP code, and then it will load its data from FileMaker. So more often than not, when you're using custom web publishing, your web server is a separate server than your FileMaker server. And if you have a 2-machine deployment for FileMaker server, now you're talking 3 servers that are in the mix. So if you do want to host your PHP code locally on the same server, it's very possible. Let me go computer. So in Finder, this is on a Mac. I'm not going to cover a PC, and I'll explain that in a minute. But if you go to your drive, your library, FileMaker server, HTTP server, htdocs, this is actually corresponds to your local host right here. So you'll see that inside of here, I've got a folder called COFMUG and a file called index.php. So that is our web hosting folder that is mapped to respond to the web calls. And this is the same, this is the default location that FileMaker server installs. It's the same on Windows, but on Windows, because most, it's not as true with Windows 7, 8, 10, but any Windows Server version is already going to have its own like Apache rules and stuff in place that aren't really written by FileMaker server. So basically, you're going to have to do a lot of customization with IIS, which is its Windows doesn't have Apache, it has IIS. So Apache knows what it's, or FileMaker knows what it's doing with Apache if you want to host this web code here, which makes it great for like if you want to do local testing on a server, just to try things out before you send it to production. But on Windows, you need to actually create like a map that points like this is where my website's going, this is where my home folder is, this is, this is what the incoming URL is expecting, all of that. So it's kind of a pain in Windows. Actually easier to just spend like, I don't know, like $10 a month on GoDaddy just to get a Linux server that runs PHP on it, and just they'll give you FTP, and you'll use a program like FileZilla to just upload your files there, and then you'll set up your domain. So here is COFMUG, and while we're here, actually, I want to show you two things in here. So I have dropped a folder in here, that's the FileMaker folder, and a file called FileMaker PHP. You'll notice that the FileMaker PHP package says, actually, this is the FileMaker API for PHP, copyright 2007. Good job, FileMaker, keeping that up to date. I'm not sure which version of FileMaker I ripped this out of. These two files actually come as part of the installed files with FileMaker Server, so you can copy these out. So this folder and this file are required with your website to run custom web publishing.
So you have a copy of that in each one of those sites that you're
I do, but I could have done a shared instance of like going back to the root with the file path. So let's actually, while we're here, let's activate FileMaker. So we're going to actually install that FileMaker file. So I'm going to use the PHP command called include, and that's just include this file. And I'm going to point it to FileMaker.php. File names and stuff, they're case sensitive, and it's also, PHP is also sensitive to have like the trailing semicolon on the end. Like if I miss this, like it'll fail. PHP 7 is a little more forgiving, but this version on here is PHP 5. That's the default that comes with FileMaker. So now, like, that's all I need to do. So now custom web publishing is installed on this page and ready to use. So I could start using it right now, but the other conversation we need to have actually is we need to set up our FileMaker file for custom web publishing. So once you get your server installed, the next thing to do is to actually resize this so it fits the screen. Yep. I'm gonna shrink it way down and shrink back up. So here I've got one of my leftover DevCon examples, FileMaker drag drop CSV. I've got 500 contacts in a contacts table. And it's called CWP contacts because I've already been using this for custom web publishing. So the only thing you really need to remember outside of setting up FileMaker server with the web publishing engine enabled, and hosting your file is actually setting up a user that is used to connect. So I'm going to go into Manage Security, and you'll see I've got CWP user in here. In my privilege sets, you see I've got a specific privilege set for that CWP user. And then under Extended Privileges, these two values right here, access via XML Web Publishing or access via PHP Web Publishing, it's used by that CWP privilege set. I also enabled it for WebDirect for my demos and the FileMaker network, and for re-authentication.
So if you're just doing PHP,
you really only
you
need
just
this
need
one.
the XML, just the PHP,
Just the
XML?
PHP. You don't need the XML. And you don't need the FM network either. You don't need FM access. You can specifically set up one for FM PHP.
You need FM network if you're going to ever connect to the file again.
Using that privilege set, but that's FM network's only good for FileMaker Pro and FileMaker Go. Even you can set up a WebDirect privilege and not have any of these other ones checked, and they'll be able to connect with WebDirect fine. Because you're connecting to the web publishing engine, you're not actually connecting to the FileMaker server itself. So that's all set up. I've got this layout. The next thing you need to know is that when custom web publishing connects to the web publishing engine, it doesn't see this screen, but it knows what's on the screen. So if you want to be able to pull a field or search on a field, it has to be on your screen. So I can't just make an empty layout with no fields on it and expect it to work. So usually what I'll do for custom web publishing is once everything's set, you know, table-wise and structure-wise, I'll just create a CWP folder and a layout just with all of the fields on in that CWP folder, and I'll title it something like CWP contacts, you know, with all the table names, just so I know if I want to search on that table, I just have to do CWP contacts. All the fields will be there to search on and as my result. So that is all you really need to know about this.
How does
This might sound like a silly question, but with, I think it was 13, you can hide things in plain sight.
Mm-hmm.
Does it have to be? I mean, can you?
Yeah, hide object when. So
No. I'm talking. Go to the layout mode.
right. So you're talking about the hide object when, like.
No, I'm talking about you can have things that you can see in the layout mode, like where people have put web.
You mean the right side?
Yeah, the right side and outside of what.
Oh, the hidden zone? Yeah, so
Does it-
nothing.
I'm assuming it doesn't matter based on what you said. Since PHP.
I don't really know the answer to that. I
Okay.
always put it straight on the layout. I'm not sure if anything in this hidden zone will actually be accessible. I think it is, because it's actually part of the layout.
Oh.
Like, so like the functions that PHP uses are similar to the design functions that will tell you about every object on the layout. I do know that if you use hide object when,
Okay.
that it will still find that on the layout. If it's on your layout, but if it's still like evaluating as hidden, it will actually.
Because the PHP is not going to use the layout engine at all.
Right.
It's just going to be XML.
Okay.
So I think the ones in the hidden area should show up, but I'm not 100% sure because I've never tried. Because I always set up my own CWP layouts. So
before that, how does the PHP user actually authenticate?
what do you mean? Username and password, same as any other FileMaker.
Like where?
Where?
Is that in the PHP code
Yeah,
somewhere?
we haven't gotten to that part yet. We're like 3 steps ahead of the game. It's great. So we've included the API here, but we haven't actually done anything to set up a connection or anything yet. So what we need to actually do is start working with this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create FM. So FM is same variable kind of structure as it is in FileMaker, just $FM. They don't really use globals at all, they use globals, but there's no like $, so it's kind of different. So I'm going to do FM equals, and I'm going to type new FileMaker. Now what am I doing here? So since I've got these brackets here, that means that this is a function. So FileMaker is a function. And it's a function as part of the API. So what it's actually doing here by creating a new FileMaker thing is it's creating an object that is going to represent my connection to FileMaker. So that object is something that I'm going to query against. So I'm going to say, hey, FM, I want this found set of data, or FM, I want to add this record to the database. So this object will handle all of our requests back and forth with the database. So this object right now is just an empty object. We haven't told it to do anything. So what we actually need to do is actually start setting our information up. So it takes a set property as another function, and it takes this one is our database name. So this is drag drop FileMaker drag drop CSV FileMaker drag drop CSV. The next one is our actual, like, the server we're connecting to. So this is set property. Host spec is the name of this one. and comma right there. And this is our local host here, so I'm going to do that address. If you are connecting to another server, like if you're hosting your PHP code on another website and you want to connect to your FileMaker server somewhere else, this would be your WAN IP address, your external IP address. Or this could be a DNS address, like if you have FileMaker.whateverdomain.com, you could drop that in here. That's just the server address from FileMaker. And then the next two properties are the username and password. So it's a property, it's going to be username, and it's going to be, see that the user is the name I put in, and set.
Isn't it kind of vulnerable to leave a password just sitting in the text?
So since all of PHP is evaluated server-side and never passes the client, not really.
So your server can never be hacked.
Sure, your server can be hacked.
Then
If you want to actually, if you want to, I mean, there's probably worse stuff they can do if they actually hack your server than steal your FileMaker password.
But if the entire point of your server is hosting custom web publishing,
Yeah.
then that would be the target, I would assume.
Well, somebody would have to decode and figure out that you're using custom web publishing. Then they would have to understand how FileMaker works. Then they would have to figure out how to exploit it.
So I guess my question is there a way to authenticate without just typing it in code? Can you
Yeah, so you can
hash it somehow?
You can hash your password into MD5 and hash it out and store it somewhere else, or you can do a username and password form that people log in with to authenticate, and it won't connect to CWP until it verifies their credentials.
More like WebDirect?
Yeah, but for the basic 0 to 50 example that we're doing here,
I just wasn't sure, like, if FileMaker shipped with other like secure ways of doing it.
no. So this will be the way you connect, but how you enter this and this and this and this, all of these, I'm hard coding it in here. They can all be variables that you set with other PHP functions. So you could tie like WordPress user accounts into this. You could tie two-factor authentication. You could do a lot of stuff before it gets to this place. And then you could do a FileMaker. You could do a script on the FileMaker side that returns like the unhashed password back so it can reconnect. You know, there's a lot of different ways to do it. None of them are basic and easy to understand while we're sitting at a restaurant. So this has established our connection to FileMaker. So now we have this FileMaker object, $FM, that is connecting to this. And for those of you that are into error checking, let me pull up another piece of code right here on my end so I can do error checking. So the other good thing about sorry. Sorry, most of the stuff in this is abstract. Let's see that we can connect. That's what I want. Okay. So a basic error check to check and see if it connected okay would be this. And I'm just going to paste this into place and we're going to go here. So we've got our FM object that should now be connected to the database, right? So I'm going to set another variable in PHP that actually takes this FileMaker object and passes it another function that says list layouts. And this is exactly like the design function of listing all the layouts for what you're connected to. So if list layouts, which is coming from this PHP API, doesn't actually return a list of layouts, it's going to return an error. So this next line here is checking to see if there is a FileMaker error. So it knows that, like, since we're using this, it's a FileMaker object, we can use this FileMaker class down here, and we can call it isError. And then we're checking this line to see if there's an error. So if there is an error, I can say like my connection status is 0 or my connection status is 1. And, or I can do something like echo error kind of thing to database. Or I can do echo successfully connected. And I can take out my hello world here, and let's save this, and I'm going to actually refresh the page right here. And there we go, successfully connected. So the other thing I could do is I could go in here, successfully connected, and I could do something like break list of layouts. Break, it's just some straight HTML here, and I could do, let's see, print R. So I'm not going to really go into detail about how arrays work in PHP. It's a little more than I have here. But here is actually when FileMaker, when the PHP API returns things to you, it's usually an array. And all an array is a 0 index list. So the first value of 0 is called landing page. The second value is called CWP contacts. And these are just literally just the layout names returned.
It actually returns you that index in the values they write.
Mm-hmm.
Weird. Cool.
So another thing I could do to make this just a little prettier, PHP has a, or HTML has a, it's called pre, which is designed to kind of like make it more, wow, oh, it's like a whole like, birthday party going through. They probably don't want to see this. So this will just give you a prettier printout of this array so you can look at it. So JSON's actually got the same thing, JSON pretty print, it's called. I always laugh at that because it's called pretty print. So yeah. So if we even want to go further with this, and let's say like we actually want to print out a list, we can actually start doing a loop in PHP, and we can say for each connected as layout. So this is what a loop is, and it's going to give me that value of that array as a variable. So I'm going to just say echo layout dot break.
So when you echo something, does it say it once and say it faintly a little bit afterwards?
No, it does not. So if I do this and refresh, there's my list of layouts. So you can start to build this pretty robustly if you want to do, say, like align dot layout dot and align. This will give us an actual list. There's our list of layouts. You can build this into tables. So this is, we're actually loading dynamic content out of our database right now. So if we added another layout on our file right now and refresh this page, it would show up there. So you can start to see as this starts to get like pretty powerful now. So, but this isn't actually what I wanted to show you. So I'm going to leave that there, but I'm going to space it out a little bit by just echoing some breaks in here. That colon doesn't belong there. So we're connected to FileMaker now. We know we're connected because we did this error check. So the first thing that most people want to do when they connect their FileMaker databases to the web is actually find some information and display it on their website. That's 70% of the first thing that people come to us to ask about custom web publishing is like, I've got this FileMaker database. I need to like show some information on the website for that. The other 30% is I've got a FileMaker database and I need to collect information from people. So how can you, or I've got WordPress and I need to dump forms into our database. And then we say, that's nice. How much money do you have?
You can do the WordPress forms.
But in terms of searching, we're going to go right back to our go back to, there we go. So in here, so to search, we need to tell it what layout we're going to search on. So right now, we need to just create another variable down here that says layout equals, and that one is called CWP contacts because I named all my CWK layouts the same. And then basically, we're going to do something like last name equals, and it always cracks me up because it's in there. But I downloaded the source data on the first record of what it was, James Butt or something like that. So basically, this is going to start to look really familiar as we get into this find here, because you can follow, if you've ever kind of exploded a find in a script, so you go to layout, enter find mode, set field, perform find. If you've ever written that as a script, this is exactly the same thing. So we're going to do our find equals, and then we're going to do our find on our FileMaker object, which is FM. And we're going to do new find command. And then we're going to say, do that find command on this layout. So it makes sense, right? So we're telling our connected FileMaker object to create a new find command for that layout. So this itself is giving us our own kind of like object that will work with this $find.
So now we're essentially in find mode on that layout.
So
yeah.
I can create, let's say, finds 1 through 10 that might be different layouts.
Yeah. So some people will, if they need like, instead of doing 10 searches, they'll do 1 search and then they'll use PHP to split out that into the smaller sets that they need.
Okay, well, I was thinking is if I routinely wanted to.
Actually, you can copy and paste this a number of times and it will just rewrite the old one every single time. Drink check? Yeah, we noticed it. We're sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no, we had a
Congratulations.
reservation. It was for like somewhere in the bar area. And then they're like, no, we
You
got
can get
a room.
another
I'm
root
like,
beer.
okay.
Yeah, well, we like to plan, like, we emailed Bob,
Yeah.
like 3 months ago.
Oh, it was just like miscommunication.
Right.
But I think amongst them, the other person.
It's great that you can accommodate them.
Oh, no, it's awesome. Like,
We can
I'm
tell.
just tired. I
Yeah.
picked up for my sister tonight. She owes it.
Double now. So yeah, so if I create, if I use this line again anywhere, it will overwrite this entire found set and just start a new one.
Okay.
So I can keep using it. I can name it something different, and then I can reference all of my different objects,
Right.
like if I need to do that later on. But usually it's like you find some stuff, you do some stuff with that stuff, and then you can just refind again. You don't, if your layout doesn't change, you don't have to set that again. Like if your parameters don't change, you don't have to set that again. But for every time you reset this, it's going to create a new find request.
Okay.
So now we want to actually tell it to find something. So we're adding to our find here. So find $arrow add find criterion. And then we're going to give it a field name, and that field name is going to be first name, and then comma, sorry, and then what we're looking for, which is last name. that doesn't work, so we're going to type last name. And that's that. So now we've specified a find request. I'm going to check really quick here that it is indeed called last name, last underscore name. So
So just to clarify, good.
no,
Can you show me what were you verifying you were going back?
I was verifying the field name because that matters. So last name is the field name, but it's last underscore name. If I just had last name in there, it wouldn't have found that field, so it would have kicked back an error message to me. And actually, I will on purpose break this later to show you actually what an error looks like.
So the add find criterion function you're calling there, I assume there are other functions where you can add multiple requests.
There are. Yep. So you can do like a multiple record find or multiple request find request. You can omit. You can do everything you can do in FileMaker. And if you just want to do something that use an operator, you can do that as part of whatever you're passing in. So like I can pass in like star up here, and it will search for the same FileMaker operator star in that last name field.
So could you make like your last name objects basically iterating through an array of last names? So say you get like 5 or 10 last names, you want to find star and find them kind of parse it that way as well. Okay.
You could do that. So you would do another loop that would pretty much add a new request and set the new find criterion for that request. And FileMaker will handle it up to whatever the limit is, like 999 like requests. So add find criterion, and then we're going to actually, out of this, we're going to get our found set. So I'm going to call this set, and I'm going to say find. This is where you get to use cool terminology, execute.
Now is what I wanted to ask my question.
All right.
So just to clarify, if we were to run this right now, we would not see anything aside from our successfully connected and our breaks, because we ran the find, but we didn't tell it what to do with the results.
Yeah, we would only see this much because we haven't done anything with our found set yet. So we're actually going to do our error check right here again. So we're going to do if, and it's just exactly the same thing that we did up here. If FileMaker is error, except this is going to be on set now, so set. And then we're going to do echo. Oops. Something from. And then we're going to do colon break. And then we're going to do another print our error or set, sorry. Because our set itself will actually do an error if nothing is returned. If something is returned, then we're going to do else echo find these people. And for now, I'm just going to leave that as it is. Oops. I always like to, like if I'm doing things inside of loops, you can just tab over. PHP generally ignores the tabs. You can actually minify this whole page so it's on one line if you want to. Everything is separated by the semicolons. It's just, you know, yeah, and not really any faster because it's executing at the same speed because it ignores certain characters if they're not. It ignores those characters if they're not inside of single or double quotes. Or inside of these areas. But in terms of like this, if it's before the command, then you're fine. So let's actually see what happens when we run this. So we got found these people because there is at least that one person with that last name in our database. So if we actually want to break this on purpose, let's just say this is the. So if we break that on purpose, we yeah, whoops, something went wrong, really wrong. So this is actually printing out the entire object of FileMaker. So we can, most people when they error check will grab something out of this array. Here's like our CWP user. There's our username and password in plain text. So obviously this is something you don't want to print out to your.
I wish we had this kind of debugging in FileMaker.
Exactly. So let's actually clean it up a little so we can read it, and we'll do the long, and then we'll do the free here, and then we'll do the echo ending free there. A lot of people at that baby shower. So you can actually tell not only is this an array that it returns, but it's what's called a multi-dimensional array in PHP, and that means it's an array of arrays.
Of arrays of arrays.
Which is why if you scroll through, you'll see like whatever this key is, that is an array of objects. These are the objects in that array, and then it steps back out. Here's other things. There's our code 401. That's actually the FileMaker error code that it does return. So 401 is no records found.
So do you think in the future, if FileMaker moved to a REST API, things like this will all just be JSON?
All of this will be JSON if it's in a REST API.
Cool.
And JSON, it's not really that much different. Like if you pre-print the JSON, it looks exactly like this, except like instead of being in brackets, like this is in double quotes, and then there's a comma at the end of each line. And it's not an arrow; it's still limited by a single colon. But you know, it follows this exact same like nested structure, this hierarchy. So we want actually to get that code out of there. Oops.
Wish we had someone at the meeting who understood hierarchies of data, like XML, JSON stuff.
So let me actually save this time.
This is a pre-validate. So is it, if there's validation on the field?
Yeah. I think in this case it's you can actually send it. FileMaker will pre-validate your call to the database to see if it's valid. So like if you're trying to search text in the number field or something like that, it'll pre-validate that a little bit. Mom's like, shh. I was like, you probably takes to a while. It's fine.
I can only imagine what Patrick's doing.
So instead of this, we're actually going to use this, and I'm going to echo. This is going to be set message set. So this was just something I copied and pasted straight out of the FileMaker like documentation. So basically, we're getting the message out of this set, and we're getting the code, and that will return to us the text message, and then the FileMaker error code it has. So if we go back to here and refresh it, I'll say it didn't actually give us a message, I guess, but it gave us 401, which is no records found. So
are the error codes mostly the same as FileMaker when you're actually doing stuff like that?
almost all of them are the same as FileMaker. There's some specific ones, but usually if you get an error that's not being returned by FileMaker, it's something else with the PHP, like the connection couldn't be established or stuff. So if you're doing this type of error checking up here to like make sure you can connect, you should never run into non-FileMaker errors. All right, so we've got our found set here. So we found these people. So we want to do something else down here. We're going to do another for each here to go through our array data set. For each set as person. We're going to do echo. And let's see. I guess we'll just do it as another line. We'll go into the specifics. Person. Now FileMaker. So even though we're now in like way down into actually processing our array, FileMaker, the FileMaker PHP API is still giving us commands that we can use on these objects as we create them. So one of those useful ones is get field, and then we're going to get last name. I'm not sure that we can do the two of these together. There might be a reason why I have to do this separate. Yeah, last name. Sorry, switch it over and check my capital G. Get field, and then
That's nice.
I used a single quote on one and a double on the other side. That's all. That may or may not actually be case sensitive. But I'm going to echo comma space and then.
We're going to close the list.
Yeah, I know. But I want to get their first name too, because even though I only searched by their last name, I can also get.
You can get every field.
Every field that was on that
That's
layout.
in that record, yeah.
And then first experiment.
So he's kind of like calling a method on a model on it. I'm going to get the method with the parameter on it.
Functionally, it's like only value out of the dictionary. It's a key value store. And you
And then
access
as
it.
Joe noted, we have to actually close out our line. So the other way I could have done this would have been to set a variable, just like output equals and then output dot equals will let me like append something onto there. So I could have actually done this instead and then just echoed it all out at the end, but semantics at that point, so not too worried about that. Okay, so now let's go back here. And it didn't return anything, great.
Did you delete the button?
I did not delete that. And then actually figure out what one. So that for each set,
Well, it didn't error. It
it
just
did not error.
Does it care if you're not opening the forward list?
The what?
The UL, there's no open or close UL tag.
No, because it's outputting the dot. I'm trying to think of one.
I think you deleted the button.
No, that's the last thing.
It would have given me a 401 error if I deleted that. So let me just check the FileMaker database. Last name, first name underscore.
And then it's lowercase, uppercase.
No, it's usually not it. Still found these people. Okay. Hang on. First name, last name is there. What is there? I wonder if it's being taste sensitive or something. Shouldn't be. CWP contacts. CWP contacts. Username, different transfer. It's basically returning empty array. Oh, did I do the yeah, so that's what I didn't do. So I executed to get my found set. I never actually re-got my records, so that is actually make it run. So I need to actually get records equals it says results get records. So out of that set, I need to actually use get records to get that, and then I don't need that, and then this is each records as person. So let's try that. There we go. So the actual execute, this is your perform find script step. So even though I've performed the find at this point, my error check is to see if anything was wrong when I performed the find. It wasn't to actually get the records that were returned. So there's where the slight difference is with PHP. You actually have to get those records out of the set. There's other functions you can call here, like if you want to return like get found count or return a list of like the record IDs that are found. You can do that as well. So let's just say we change this to something like Smith. No, that's old.
Yeah, at least not.
Only Ty Smith.
People are getting scared by zombies.
Yeah. At least it's not the
There we
fire.
go. So that only returns
Door
one Smith.
slamming and
Do I really only have one Smith in this database?
go back to one of my original questions. How do you find these places?
Yeah, this is only one Smith.
We got to carry it out. We'll have the next one at the bus stop. We'll have the next one at the bus station.
Well, I mean, I can just make it.
Is there a
I can search on an operator here.
something where we can find all these?
So I could do. Let's do
Travel that far.
names, last names that begin with S.
This time of day, it's real plan.
There we go.
We just sit.
So since I was already in a for each, it's already thrown everything into its own line here. And there we go. So if you actually want to start writing some straight HTML in here, you could do that as well. You could do something like href equals, let's do, I'm sure this is not going to work, but I'll come back for it. Let's do name equals this, that. And now that I've got name in a variable, I can use this in line. Name, dot, open match. And my link down here, so this will hyperlink everything. You can see really quick what our screen sharing. Right. Wooden leg named Smith.
There you go.
So Q equals Smith. Let's try that as our method. So now our website should have a link to search on the last name for all of these people. So you see they're all linked. It didn't actually perform the find, but it dropped it in there for me. So, there you go. So obviously with a little playing around, you could do things like a list of addresses for something where you could click and it would take them to a Google Maps page. You can embed website content related to this that you're doing. You can do graphs on your website from the data that you're returning. All kinds of stuff. Anything you can do with data, you can now do with this. So like, just to show you some fluke, put the massage something else there too. So that is that. So how are we doing this time? 7:28. All right. So I have enough time to probably teach you how to add a record as well. So what I'm going to do is show you how to comment all of this crap out that we just did. So open your comment, you see everything turns gray. Down at the end, we're going to close that. Ironically, the same comment that the calculation engine FileMaker uses as well. You can also use single line comments with a double front slash.
Most languages.
You need
Most languages use it, yeah. So if I needed to like comment out one line, I could do that.
and you don't need to end that, right?
So the ending question mark, like if this wasn't there, it would still run because
But
it
no, I
actually,
meant on the single line comment. You don't need to
yeah, you comment it out. I could actually remove this because PHP is procedural, so it will just run through your script until it breaks. And if there's nothing on the end, like I'll just be like, okay, I'm done, I guess. But
Sounds
this,
like my day.
this gives it a definitive stop point, the question mark. So let's do, we're going to still use this. CWP context, and we're going to do add equals FM again. We're going to do new. Add. I think that is it. Let me double check. Some code that actually makes sense. Yeah, new add command, and then our layout. So now we're adding something. So when you add a record, what do you normally do? You set field. There we go. So we're going to do add set field. Then we're going to tell it what we're going to set as the first name. Joe. And then we can do that just as a literal here. So I'm going to read Joe.
I've always wanted to be on the internet.
And, so this again, you can set it with anything that you can get out of PHP. So if you've got like MySQL form builder, or you're pulling like WordPress data, or you're pulling search data, or whatever, you can any basically string or number or whatever field type you're passing that to, you can set that field to whatever you can pull out of PHP. So there is hundreds of thousands of pre-existing PHP scripts out there that do something that you can adapt to now talk to your FileMaker database. Simpson. And we'll do just see what the rest is. There it is. We've got show just do headers.
Yeah, there's only 205,000 repositories on GitHub for PHP.
So let me introduce you to a PHP constant. So constants are, they're not used as much in FileMaker because FileMaker replaced most of them with get functions, but true is a constant as much as it is a function. So,
We should go in there and aggressively program it.
aggressive. I think we should just join them afterwards. So we're going to do, one of the constants is the date function. So I'm going to see, I'm not sure if I can pass this directly in there. We'll see if it works or not. So now we need to do is add it. Execute the same way as we did before. And then what we'll do is the same error check that we did before. So a lot of this is copy and paste reusable. They're the same. Else go record added successfully. All right. So this is start to finish. We're telling it which layout we want to add something to. We're opening up that record, and then this execute is pretty much the commit record action. And then if it can't commit it, it will give us an error. So let's see if this runs. The only thing I'm not sure about is if it will do that date. All of our other stuff will disappear. It said record added successfully, but let me go over here. Drop this in. That doesn't actually look so. I'm not sure it actually does. So on this, we're going to give this yeah, well, it is there. And it did it. Give us our date, which is lowercase l is the day name. It's the date function in PHP, like look up the documentation for it, because if you try to use it without it, it won't make sense. So like lowercase l in date represents day name. Uppercase L is the number of the day of the week. So Thursday would be to whatever your server preference is. So if your server preferences run Sunday through Saturday, Thursday will be 5. That kind of thing. So, yeah, but it added that to our database. It took a couple seconds for it to refresh on our side, but it is there. I thought there were 500 records, and I guess there were only 499 or something. So to complete the training, what you would need to learn would be the update and the delete actions. So one resource I want to show you is Jonathan Stark actually has one of the most complete libraries of PHP documentation on the web. So basically, it's going to tell you the class name.
I should tell you how old this library is.
Yeah, 2007. So he published this right after it came out. So this will tell you,
We can't see the page yet.
so you see FileMaker is what we're doing. So that's our class, and we're doing, so since,
Can you drag that
See the
onto
page.
right, 'cause I did it in the wrong way.
Make it go over there. Hooray!
So since we created a new object, our $FM, we can now use the $FM and arrow over to get any one of these FileMaker class commands. So here is our new add command. There's new compound find, so it knows to expect a compound find. New delete command, new duplicate command, so you can duplicate a record. New edit command. So you'll notice this one takes both layout name and record ID. And optionally, this is a one-liner, so you can actually pass in all the field values that you want to update with and do like just one quick update. New find all command is like doing command J on a layout and getting all the layouts. Find any command is good if you want to get like a summary or a global value that you have. So I use find any commands when we do reporting dashboards where I like aggregate a bunch of data into a reports table, and like each record has a different value, but there's also another field that has the same value for all records. So new find any will return that single one for me. So this one's kind of important if you get into looking at my demos from DevCon. Perform script command will actually give you a layout to go to, a script to perform, and a script parameter to do, which is really useful if you want to do post-processing, like after you do something else.
So I was going to ask this towards the end. We're talking about it right now. It's more of a best practices question. I'm not sure if it's a good idea or not. But I worked with a customer about a year ago. They had a FileMaker backend system and then a PHP front-end system for all their contractors and vendors to use, several hundred users. And it was all built in custom web publishing. Pretty much like there was no external library or anything. They just kind of hand-coded the entire thing. And to make it nice and simple, rather than do like in the PHP, rather than do individual find requests, what they did was like basically every page, anytime they needed to get something from FileMaker or send something to FileMaker, they would just use the perform script and just tell the PHP, you perform the script, have FileMaker do all the business logic and return results.
Yeah.
Is that a good idea?
It is an idea. It might be good for performance cases, like French performance applications. It's basically perform script on server for the PHP API.
Yeah, that's essentially what they were doing. They said they started doing it because it was too hard to keep up. If they had to change a field name or something, it was too hard to keep up with all the PHP files and go through every name.
So since you can get like the list of fields on whatever layout you're on, you can like totally kind of like abstract your code a little bit to account for like field name changes. Also, you can get the actual object ID of everything on the layout, the field ID. So you can do all of your reference by like FileMaker's internal ID. So it's like completely like, yeah. It's a little hard to get at that level. So like when you start talking about stuff like Blogger.
But it kind of made sense though, because like some of the report scripts would be fairly complicated business logic in FileMaker. So it'd be like a script with 4 or 5 subscripts doing a whole bunch of stuff.
Definitely. There's definitely a lot better stuff. And if you exit your script with any result, that is passed back to the PHP API. So it works the same way like perform script on server does. So it was perform script on server before that ever existed for FileMaker.
Before it was cool.
And actually, it was a lot of the CWP community that was driving that to FileMaker. Like, hey, I can tell FileMaker to do this, and it will execute it through the web publishing engine, just like it was on the server.
Greg Lane made the original perform script on server at Skeleton Key 6 months before it came out in FileMaker.
So there's so each one of these kind of goes into its own separate thing. So like here's the commands for like compound find. So you're adding a find request, you're adding a sort rule to your phone set, clearing your sort rules if you want to unsort your phone set. Set range is actually pretty useful. So if you're setting up FileMaker for like paging, or if you're setting up your PHP site through paging through like 10,000 records, you can have it return like the first 100, and then when somebody clicks the next page on your website, it will go out and grab the next 100. You know, it'll,
And you could bounce a skip.
yeah, so you on your first page, this would be 0 through 99. Your second page would be 100 through 199. It's just, yeah. It's pretty much just a range, even though it says it is technically skipping, but so here's your like commands for like set field from timestamp, all these different things. Here's the ones that are returned by your error class. Your FileMaker field stuff. Like if you want to query, like these are like kind of design functions. Like this will get the name of a field where you type in the name field and of the field in the inspector. This will get that name back. Repetition count, like if you've got a repeating field. Interestingly enough, if you return the contents of a repeating field to FileMaker or to the PHP API, it returns it as an array. So it's kind of already transformed into something you would expect. All this stuff. FileMaker record actions, commit, delete. Here's the
Authentication ID.
Here's the get field name that we got. Get fields will give you a list of all the fields on your record. So like when you return your records, you can see exactly what fields were returned, and then you can like match that up against an array you have and like cherry pick things. There's a lot of like functions, like so you can write your own custom functions in PHP that will basically like do everything that we wrote out in here in all of this. Like you could just turn this into its own function so that you could type something like echo output records and then records like that. And since you like made a function called output records that took care of doing all of this for each item in the array that you passed, it would spit out all of that without you having to do anything. So you could do like this function you could do in a separate functions file that you included. So basically like it's replacing like 20 lines of code inside of a loop with like one line, and then that way when you're doing stuff on your main page, it keeps it neat and tidy so you're not seeing like hundreds of lines of code there. So it's kind of like, that would be kind of like writing your own custom function right there. So let's go back. So there's a lot in here, like table order count. There's actually, this is out of date too, because there's functions too now that where you can work with. Yeah, this was in 2007. There's functions too where you can get related sets. Sets filters. Yeah, there we go. Get a related set, so you can actually get a portal. Like you pass the portal name that's on the layout to here, and it'll return the related records for whatever record you're on.
Portal name, you mean like object names?
Yeah. Get related sets, if you leave this empty, it will return all of the portals with all of the related records. So it's super, super powerful what you can do with all of this. And then actually the third column over here will tell you exactly what it returns. So string is just like a text value. It's just any text or numeric value array. Boolean, that's like true, false. So you can do that check for like is error or void means it doesn't return anything to you, and that just means that like it's like a one-way command.
I'm sorry. I got
Yeah.
a little
No, it's okay.
chaotic.
Anything else? Yeah. So our meeting's ending in like 10 minutes, so you can
All
take
right.
checks.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. So really, that's it. So the 4 database actions that you should ever know in working with FileMaker from the outside is, it's called CRUD. So create, read, update, and delete. So if you can, we went over 2 of those. We did create and read today. You can do update and delete.
So I guess how much work would it be, or just not how much work? What would be like the building blocks to take basically make a form of, I want to go to the website, go to a layout, go to a screen where it's got like 5 fields, enter value in each field, maybe other data types, just submit.
actually not like barely anything. Like you take that add command.
But I mean, like, how do you tie that to the actual fields on the HTML?
Yeah, I know.
How do you style it?
So really fast, if you're doing that, you'll be posting to a form. So if not empty, and then post is what's called a super variable. So like that's what this underscore is for. There's a couple of super variables like post and session and cookie and PHP. So basically, I'm checking for if this post is not empty, I'm going to post that form. So I would do all of this inside of there. I'm just going to put in post here. Otherwise, what I want to do is actually show that form here. So I would actually probably, I don't know if I would echo all this up. So what I would probably do is I would end my PHP right there, and then do the form here, and then restart my PHP again. So you can do that. Now, anything I type between here, I can just use a straight HTML form. HTML. Quality form action equals index.php method equals post input ID equals first name equals first name type text. That 3 times last name. I need the submit button, which I forgot off the top of my head. Hold on. Copy and paste this over somewhere else. So type equals submit is the important one here. I don't need a class because I don't have class. So this should work. So basically, it's going to post these IDs or these names into post. So now up here, now that I'm in post, what I actually need to do is set those. So first name equals post underscore post brackets first name. Then do the other three, two, last name, last name.
So essentially what you're doing with this page is saying, check FileMaker to see if there's a result to this chunk of code. If not, then show a form.
So let me finish this one. Element. And address. So basically, when PHP first loads this page, it's going to check to see if you're posting something to this page. If you're not posting something to this page, it's going to skip all the way down here, and it's going to dump out this really simple HTML form because it didn't find you're not posting this page. This form has an action of index.php, and it's using a method of post. So it's going to post to, it's going to post to index.php. I'm just trying to figure out where method post action. Yep. So, yeah. So when it posts to index.php, this entire page will then start again at the top. But this time, since post is not empty, it will include FileMaker. It will set these variables from the HTML form, and then it'll do exactly the same thing we just did about adding a reference to it. So let's see if I was able to get all that actually working in like 5 minutes. Window over here. Okay, so obviously I didn't have a break there, but it was first name. So when I hit update here, it's update because it's what I pulled out, but you can make it say whatever you want. There we go. I got these successfully connected and record added successfully. So that's what we were expecting. There's no errors returned or anything. So now I should be able to go in here and find. There we go. So it's that easy.
So then, to actually make it look nice, you would just have your site loading CSS and take those default HTML.
Load some CSS, load a Bootstrap theme or whatever.
Obviously, FileMaker server, PHP, CSS, write to HTML code.
JavaScript if you want to do validation, like. So I'll give you my. That's.
Do you have any complete things you can show up?
Probably not. There's a big one I can show, but not as part of the recording.
When you're doing your PHP development, what tools do you use?
I use PHP Storm so I do use Text Wrangler, which is what you've been seeing me type out in as just my plain text out there. I switch back and forth between Sublime Text and Text Wrangler because Sublime Text will nag you if you're using the free version. Like every 10 saves of a file you do, it'll pop up a window, and that kind of ticks me off. Yeah, but the paid version is $100, and then well, it used to be $99, but still for a text editor,
I think we can bring
Text Wrangler is free. So let me get something I can put up on the screen. Sorry, I need to knee deep in some other project here, and I need to be very careful about what I can. No, I can't post that because that's got the username and password. This one I can use. So basically, like this is what PHP sewing looks like. It's got some other tools, like I can do terminal commands in here. I can actually execute like this PHP script here and debug it. Like it'll tell me the errors here, rather than having to like flip back and forth between the browser. And it's got like the file structure that I like, and it's got commits built in, so I can actually like link this up to GitHub and like push code and pull changes and stuff, and I'll keep track of that. It's got an FTP client built in if I've got a remote web server that I want to like. And I can do like one stroke upload, or if I do Command S, it will both save it and automatically FTP the change up to the live server or the test server. You can set up multiple servers so that like you can say like, okay, when I save it, I want it to go to the test server, but then I can use a terminal command to send everything from the test server to the production server that's changed, and it will run the comparison and move everything over that's changed. So there's just a lot of useful things that go beyond a text editor, but specifically for if you're using PHP. So
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because
that one they charge for. Yeah, PHP stuff is not free. So there are a bunch of other free things. So another one I use is, let me see if I can actually show this. So I can probably, yeah, I'll do this. So Git Kraken is the client that I normally use to push and pull stuff from GitHub. And you can see that it keeps tracks of changes and stuff. Like this light green one is me. This dark green one is our server if we're making a change on the server and we need to push it up. And then this other one, these other two are other people on our dev team that are pushing changes. So it keeps track of like, if something has changed, it keeps track of like where the change came from, push it down to the people. If there's conflicts, it has conflict resolution built in. And then it links up with GitHub, so you can go on GitHub and see that exact commit tree as well. It's basically the subversioning we all wish we had in FileMaker, but we don't. But it's also free. It's called Git Kraken, K-R-A-K-E-N. You can actually use Git Kraken if you want to, if you're doing development FileMaker files. It will automatically like queue all of your backups and like automatically like push them up if you want to. If you want to take up a lot of space in GitHub.
I just use clones.
Yeah.
Because GitHub will, if you're using the hosted version of GitHub, they will contact you after a while if your repo is more than a gig. They don't like that.
They do not like it. So that's it,
But
really.
if you save clones, you can get a couple hundred in there.
So another good, it's 8 o'clock, but another, I only went through a couple articles for you. So if you do a Google search for 6 fried rice, FileMaker PHP API, this was like the de facto, this is what I learned off of back in, like, when I first started. Like, a lot of, this is start to finish. It's dated, like the last time they updated it was in 2008. Like, blah, blah, blah. Like, back when Server Advanced was still a thing. A lot of this stuff is still valid, but some of the PHP syntax, like this, is no longer used in PHP.
It's a different version of PHP now, isn't it?
I forget if this was PHP 4 or, yeah, it was on PHP 4 this long ago. But still, like, a lot of the stuff hasn't actually changed, so the error checking is all the same. Die? Yeah. It literally was just stop executing the PHP like right there. There's also exit, which is the preferred. Die will not only, like, die is the same as using alt script in FileMaker, so it will kill that plus everything else.
Okay.
You know, accessing record data here, other command types, adding new record, deleting records. This is how you, like, so you can get a record ID back. Get record ID as a command, so you can get a record ID and then you can delete it. So there you go. There's new find command. There's getting a record ID, and here's actually, that's all it takes to delete a record through the APIs, those 2 lines right there. Editing, here's new edit command. So it's all kind of the same. You edit, you set a field, and then you execute as your command. Running a script, you just tell it what to run and then tell it to execute that script. And then this result becomes that script result. So then you can use this variable as your result from that script. Here's that set range command in there for paging. And that's like really it. So we covered a lot of this in one night. So that is a good one. The Jonathan Stark resource is a good one for just like scrolling through if you're thinking about something and it's not the FileMaker API documentation isn't exactly complete. It doesn't tell you how to use everything. And then another one, if you want to actually learn PHP, the favorite place I've been sending people is free. It's called CodeCademy. And they've got a PHP track in here. It's free to sign up for. I'll go back and check in CodeCademy PHP, see if I can find the actual landing page for it. But they teach a lot of stuff. HTML and CSS if you want to learn the basic things for styling a website. JavaScript if you want to start learning some of that stuff as well. So here's the welcome. Here's how to do like if else. Here's how to do a switch statement is kind of like a case statement in FileMaker. It is, but
When you're switching with a single value, not multiple cases.
right. Dealing with arrays, doing loops. There are like 5 different kinds of loops in PHP. There's like for each, while each, and I always forget the rest because I never use it. Yeah, do while. That's the other one. While and do while. So like it will keep doing that loop and while this condition exists, and once that condition ceases to exist, it will stop doing that. So like if you need something that will refresh every 60 seconds, it'll keep doing that. It's kind of like an
while we're within Bluetooth range of this device, keep doing this. But then when you walk out of it, that condition will stop.
Yeah, except you'd have to do a function to get the Bluetooth stuff, so it may or may not work. How to write your own functions, 2-part, object-oriented programming. So objects, so like the entire FileMaker PHP API, like when we say new FileMaker, that's for creating new objects, so it tells you how to do objects. And then arrays and array maps. And once you learn this much, like if you go through this whole lesson plan, you will definitely know enough to start tying together like the FileMaker PHP API. And it says, yeah, estimated course time 4 hours, so you could do it on like a Saturday afternoon or something. And it's beginner. So how CodeCademy works that's different than others is it will actually, I can't demo because I don't have an account, but you'll have a window where you're writing code like this, and it's suggesting what you write. And as you write it, the window on the right will display the result of what you wrote as either like you didn't write it the right way and it'll give you feedback, or like good, like here's what you wrote, this is what it's doing. So it kind of it gives you feedback as you're going.
It's kind of like W3 schools, but it's also like a tutorial built in as you go. So it's almost like W3 schools meets Slack. It's
Yeah, really cool stuff. So that's it. We're past our time. So I'm gonna. That's it.
Thank you.
Stop there. That'll be the last thing on there.